What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Project Super Heavy, the rebound series. As always, this video is brought to you by NutriBio Supplements, Crystals Bikinis, and BioLongevity Labs. Check out the links and the codes for those sponsors in the description below. And so, this episode, at this point, I am or was 6 weeks post show, and quite a bit of up and down to talk about this week. So, I would say from my pictures and just in terms of what was happening bodybuilding wise, isolated to bodybuilding, um, appetite, my ability to eat, how training was, how my pumps felt, how my check-in pictures looked. All that stuff was probably the best it's been since the show or throughout the whole rebound. Um, Now, have I been leaner or was I leaner like closer to the show or shortly after the show? For sure. But to me, this was the first week. I might have commented on this last week where I said I've you know started to come around and kind of like how I looked in the pictures. I really, of course, there's a million and one things that I'm critical about that I see that needs to improve. But objectively, I liked my photos this week, probably the most in this whole process or since the show. Um, I've definitely been leaner, of course, but also I feel like it was a good balance between still having good lines, um, not much obvious fat accrual, especially my spots are kind of my glutes and lower back. And so those areas look good. I think, a lot of the muscularity is starting to kind of come back, and it kind of exaggerates the shape that I have also. So I'll get to that. I'll show you guys the pictures. But in terms of day-to-day life or real life, one of the worst weeks I can remember ever having. And this is just predominantly from the abusive amount of growth hormone I've been taking. It was a fun experiment while it lasted, and I wanted to experiment personally and see how much I could handle. And I also wanted to document such an experiment and talk freely and transparently to you guys, because there's a lot of guys that are doing something similar and they don't ever talk about it, or they don't fully disclose the extent of their use. So I just wanted to put it all out there. I wanted to try it for myself. And the 20 IU experiment is over. I would say the past 8 or 9 days have been some of the worst sleep that I've ever had as an adult. And it is solely because of the level of painful carpal tunnel that I get. And I think I talked about this in the last video, but so it started, I had a couple weeks where as I'm moving the dose up, I was at 14, 17, and then eventually 20. I wasn't really having any even hand numbness or tingling, nothing like that. Then it started slow. I would start to feel it a little bit while I was sleeping or when I would get up naturally, but it wasn't disrupting my sleep and it wasn't painful. Then it came on fast in terms of it being painful and it also disrupting or preventing my sleep. I would say the past week or so, it has gotten to the point where I can't even really lay down. Besides trying to sleep, I can't lay down on the couch, laying down to even like do my morning vacuum routine. I'm unable to maintain that type of position laying down, because as soon as my body gets parallel to the floor or my body gets laid out, there's such an immediate and excruciating level of fluid retention that comes to my arms and hands. And if you've never experienced this, it may sound like I'm exaggerating, but I can't. The best way that I could explain it is that the inside of my entire arm, from the shoulder joint down to my fingertips, it feels like it's burning from the inside out. It's a deep burning sensation. Um, and this, although originally it would happen only during sleep or hours into my sleep, it has gotten to the point where if I went and just laid down on the couch, within 30 seconds, both my arms were just completely on fire. So I had multiple days where I would say I got less than 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And that's total, like, over stretches of like only being able to sleep 20, 30 minutes at a time. And then I have to get up and walk around and shake my hands out and, run I've tried everything. I'm walking around, shaking my hands out. I'll run my hands under hot water, under cold water. I've put ice packs to my hands and arms. Um, and then eventually, the past 3 or 4 days, it's gotten to a point where it doesn't matter what position I'm in, sitting, doing work, in the car, eating, that burning and hand numbness continued all day, every day, no matter what I was doing. And, that is, from everything that I know and everything that I've been told about it, it's just fluid retention. So I started doing sauna. I started doing multiple sessions of sauna a day to try to pump some of that fluid out. I started taking hydrochlorothiazide, as I was recommended would help. I upped my lisinopril. Um, After a couple of days on the hydrochlorothiazide, I doubled that. Sometimes I tripled that, taking, you know, 3 or 4 12.5 milligram tablets a day. And none of it really made any difference at all. Um, I noticed that the days that I was running insulin, it was even worse. I guess because I'm, holding more glycogen and fluid. Um, so you guys will see when I get to the diet update, I've completely removed insulin as well. But so long story short, 2 nights ago, I had a night that I went to bed at 9:30. I was able to fall asleep and I slept until 11. Woke up and my arms were unbearable. And so starting at 11, I got up and paced around the house. I'm listening to YouTube videos on my phone. I'm shaking my hands out, running it underwater, trying everything under the sun, exhausted. Um, Multiple times I went to the couch and tried to like prop my back up to where I was trying to get in a position where I'm just sitting upright to fall asleep, because laying down causes that a real buildup of that water retention. And then that wouldn't work. That still was, the hands were just too painful. I even got to a point where I was just so frustrated and exhausted that while standing up, I just leaned my forehead against a wall so that I could remain with my hands down at my side, and tried to fall asleep like that. And it just didn't work. So, um, yeah, I guess for that entire day. So then at that point, I just waited until morning and started my day. So I guess for that day, I got less than an hour of sleep total. Um, so that was the final straw for me. That starting that day, I removed the GH entirely. You guys will also see I dropped and lowered quite a bit of gear as well. Um, because I'm just thinking, like, I'm running, those were the highest doses that I had ever run. And I didn't, although I looked good and I was happy with how things were going, I didn't feel like it was a level up directly related to the gear. Like, I kind of felt like I could be achieving this on quite a bit less. And although my health was good, obviously the fluid retention was astronomical. And so I just thought logically to myself, like, okay, if I'm pulling out growth hormone, I'm pulling out insulin, I should probably lower this gear as well. So you guys will see I lowered that. One of the reductions was completely removing NPP, lowered the test, lowered the EQ as well. Um, I've toyed with the idea. I have it in my sheet. I haven't started it yet, but I've toyed with the idea of replacing the NPP and putting in like a low dose of tren, like 10 milligrams of tren per day. Being that I've gone to a more like a reduced milligram total, I feel like that could still be effective at such a low dose. If I do end up doing that, it will be, I have quite a handful of bottles of tren hex. And I am feeling after my recent prep experience and talking to some people, I even put up a poll on Instagram about this. It seems about half of the people report that a longer ester actually seems more stable to them, or that they get less side effects. There's tons of people that reported back to me and said, when I run trenanthate or tren hex, I see zero side effects at a low dose, which makes sense. A longer ester is a more stable thing. Using tren ace and using it every day, I had hoped that that would be like, okay, this is the ultimate level of stability. But it, who knows? Maybe I'm just metabolizing that hormone so quickly that it causes a volatility, especially to my sleep. But also part of the idea of wanting to toy with some low dose tren right now, besides testing out a different ester to see if it's more stable, um, my sleep can't possibly get worse. So fuck it, basically. Um, that's my logic. Fuck it. If my sleep is going to be terrible anyway, I might as well run some tren and get the performance and visual benefits from it. So you guys will see all that. I'll talk about that. What I'm hoping will happen is, the reduction of the gear, complete removal of GH, complete removal of insulin. I'm hoping that within a few days, all of the hand numbness and all of those side effects go away. From that point, if once I get, let's say, 3 or 4 full days of zero remaining side effects and hopefully improve sleep at that point, I will put GH back in very slowly and start to work it up very slowly. Like I'm going to do a couple days at 2 IUs, then I'll do a couple of days at 4 IUs, 6. I honestly don't think, I never want to say never, but I really think that if I could just stabilize at 8 IUs and set that in, like I'm going to cruise on that, I'm going to push my off season in that, I know I get zero side effects, that would be an awesome amount. I would be stoked with that because I did most of my off season last year not being able to handle any growth hormone. Even when I tried to go all the way down to 4 IUs, the carpal tunnel was so bad. So I would be stoked if I could settle into 8. Um, but in terms of like being in a surplus with your food, pushing body weight and size up, I am never going to try very high growth hormone again in that situation. Lesson learned. I'll never do it again. Um, I will definitely continue to push high growth hormone in prep because I was able to get away. I did 15 IUs almost my entire prep this year, and it was the biggest and leanest I've ever been. I could see that there was a very clear difference in my body's ability to burn fat and also maintain size. So I mean, water retention is basically at zero when at a certain point in prep because food is low, output is high. What else you're doing with compounds, like I had no water retention issues, I had no hand numbness, and this is using the same product that I'm using now. So I could see myself even trying 20 IUs next prep once I've gotten to a point where I'm lower in body weight. But lesson learned, I will never try to push astronomically high doses. I would assume that the guys that are able to do that don't get the side effects that I do. And that just goes into being the genetic elite, is that a lot of these guys just don't get side effects, whether it's, their blood work and health markers look awesome when they're on crazy amounts of gear, or they just don't get side effects from running crazy high GH doses. I mean, I've heard Roman Fritz talk about guys that he knows that are running 54 IUs a day. I cannot imagine what that would be like. I have no, I have to just assume that someone like that is just truly a hyper tolerator. They're not getting any side effects. So they said, fuck it. I'll double it and take even more. Because I can't imagine going through what I'm going through. I can't imagine that anyone would be able to tolerate it. Like this is, for weeks, I've tried to say, hey, you know what? This is the cost of running high doses. Like I want to eventually be a freak. And I tried to just go without sleep basically. And it caught up with me. So, man, if I could settle at 8, I don't know that I would even try to get to 10 because I can remember a couple off seasons ago, I tried to go from 8 to 10 and that was the immediate point at which side effects started. So, man, if I could settle at 8, that would be awesome. Let me screen share and show you guys, the X's and O's of what's going on here. So this is what I'm doing with gear. I had been at 1,400 milligrams a test. I'm pulling this back down to 1050. I had brought the EQ all the way up to a gram. I'm pulling that down by half. I'm removing the NPP entirely. And like I talked about, I'm considering trend here. And then I'm just bringing the mast up to an even 500. So that's everything. GH 0. And then hopefully I'll just be able to work this up slowly. Like I said, I was probably overzealous here putting 10 because I don't know that I'm going to even try. No changes with peptides. Show you guys what I've been dealing with check-in wise or metric wise. This was another thing too. So as the sleep started to really get shit, obviously I felt terrible during the day. It was becoming more challenging to maintain my training from just not sleeping. I also saw how much of a difference poor sleep makes on blood sugar. Immediately, my blood sugar was just through the, like you see me in the 70s, average at 73 last week, 70s all to start this week. And this is really when sleep went to shit, 3.5 hours starting here. And right away, all the numbers are up. So, that'll be another thing. I've already seen, like, I'm without growth hormone today. And I woke up in this morning, my blood sugar was 51 this morning. So it gives you an idea of how much the GH brings it up. So diet wise, I was 252. And so Compton added to the diet. And like I talked about, I removed the insulin and I'm just going to run the diet as written. No Lantus, no adjusted high days with more carbs, less fat. This is just going to be my diet. This is my diet. Obviously, my intra workout shake and my post workout meal get removed on rest days. But this is everything. So he made a couple of additions. He added these. He didn't love like the idea of my rice meals getting enormous. Like, these would have been like 400 grams of cooked rice. So he put in these rice cakes for a couple of these meals. And the way that I do it, although I don't have it notated, I wake up, I have meal one. I wake up, I do cardio, I do vacuums, I have meal one. And then I'll typically, before my sleep schedule went off the rails, I would typically take a little nap after meal one because I'm up early. Like I'd be up at 4:30, do my cardio, do my vacuums, have my first meal at about 6, take a little nap, get up, have meal 2 as my pre-workout meal, and then go train. So these meals that got additions to it with the rice cakes, meals technically 2 and 3, this is my pre-training meal. I have an immediate post-workout meal like in the car at the gym, and then I come home and then this would be the meal that I have. So this is pre-training, this is post, and then the rest of it was unaffected. This is how, so I had been purposely doing a meal that had no carbs before bed. because the growth hormone dose was so high and it was a bolus before bed. So, being that I've removed that entirely, he wanted me to space the diet out more. And also, he thought having a bigger meal where there's added fats, a fatty protein source, a consistent amount of carbohydrates that I'm used to throughout the whole day. He felt like that might help me sleep better, or kind of like wind me down prior to bed. So I'm just going to listen, and I'm going back to following it exactly as it's written. These are the macros and calories for the day. So on my training day, 400 protein, just under 800 carb, 60 fat, about 5,200 calories. And then you see the reduction on rest day. It's about 1,000 calories less. Um, and that's all. That's everything. So I will say, so 2 nights ago was the absolute fiasco with no sleep. And then last night, although this is something I'm not proud of, um, I decided there's a little like smoke shop up the street here from us. So I went up there and I bought some like THC edibles, and I took one of those before bed last night, and it helped. I definitely slept. I'm still getting the hand numbness, but it wasn't so painful, and I was able to get like a couple different 2 hour long bouts of sleep. So, I went to bed at and I purposely stayed up a little bit later last night just so that I didn't wake up at midnight and be up for the day. So I went to bed at about 10:30. I slept till about 1 and got up with the hands. I was able to go to sleep again, like 1:30 to 3, and then again like from 3:30 to 5:30 or so. So I felt a lot more refreshed today than I have. Um, like I said, a little disappointed. I had been just about coming up on like a 1 year without any weed or THC products, which was something that I was proud of. But it was definitely a much needed trade. I'll take the night of sleep. So we'll see. I'm hoping that it only just gets better. I went and trained today and did 20 minutes in the sauna post workout. I may even go back in sauna after my final meal again, just to kind of make sure I've dropped any excessive water before bed, so it doesn't swell up on me while I'm sleeping. And that's everything. So I'm temporarily out of the 8IU crew, hoping to make my reintroduction to it here within the next couple of weeks. But that's all for now, guys. Thanks for following along. Actually, you know what? I didn't even show these pictures. So for anybody that's interested, I'll show them real quick. From Relax, this is I feel pretty excited about this. The fact that I have, because I do kind of vacuum my front shots, and if I crunch down or try to flex my abs, it just makes my waist look wide. And my waist is not very small to begin with. Although it looks good when I vacuum, that's more of just an illusion. But a lot of times from vacuuming, there's really no detail or anything. So I've commented on this a couple times, but I've never really had like this columned look to the lower abs, especially. And I spent a long time. There was a long period of time where I did a lot of like leg lifts. Like I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to train my lower abs and this will come in. And it's still nothing really ever happened. And then this is the most consistent vacuum routine I've ever been in, or maybe since I started vacuuming like 2017. And even as I've come up in body weight and presumably body fat, my waist has started to look more defined. So although no one's, this isn't winning the Olympia, at least within my own process and my own progress, I'm excited about how this is starting to look. And this, to me, I think this is just a good representation of the balance of what I was talking about, where I feel like I look like I have some good size and some fullness to everything up top here. Um, the midsection is in control and looks better than it has in the past for me. And then still some good lines in the legs too. So it's not like things have gone too far. Here, like, again, not super peeled, but still able to maintain decent control of my midsection. Still got some side lines in the glutes. I like, how kind of my arms and shoulders are starting to come along. I think I could pose this better for my actual back, but I like how my lower body looks here. I feel like I look pretty muscular here, and then there's still some faint lines in the glutes, so you guys know that I'm still on my diet. I think this is probably the front double. I've been toying around with some different leg positionings. I'm not sure if I like this or not, but um, it is what it is. I think that it looks like my arms have started to come up a little bit, which is good. Front lat spread. Um, so being able to train my chest post show like this, I've been super, super healthy. I honestly think a big part of it has been taking a lot of both oral and injectable BPC. It's the healthiest that like my pec has felt in a long time. So I've been able to get some good training in, and I feel like I can start to see some progress in my chest. My chest is definitely a weak point on my physique, and it gets exposed in some of these front shots. But here, although it's not exceptional, I can see that it is starting to look better than it has. So that's, I'm excited about that. This is another shot. I think arms and delts are definitely the big priority. Like this whole upper shelf, chest, shoulders, arms. I really am hoping to make some big improvements there. And this is a shot that will display it if I'm able to do that. Back double. I put this up on Instagram. Somebody replied to this picture. I guess maybe it's the angle or something. But they asked me if I've continued doing SEO in my rear delts. Um, I did SEO in my arms a little bit during the prep, and then a little bit at least initially to start the rebound, and I just got sick of it. Um, and it worked. I liked what it did for my arms. However, I've never put SEO. I've never done SEO in my shoulders. Um, I put my gear in my shoulders, but I have also just put a lot into growing my rear delts specifically. So I think that's probably what you're seeing here. I'll take it as a compliment, though. So many things that I put oil in a spot that I didn't. I'll take it. So that's where I'm at. And then I thought this was a funny comparison. So I've been showing you guys comparisons like to where I was at this point last year during the rebound. So as something different, I went back, I found pictures. Let's see. So I went back and looked at 3 years ago to the date. So I took these pictures September 6th, 2025. And I went back to September. It ended up being September 5th, I think, of 2022. So 3 years ago exactly. This was me to now. So safe to say some growth has happened, especially in the shoulders. I really it almost looks bizarre that I had no shoulder at all. Um, I forget what my note said. I think I was I was kind of in the middle of like I think on a cruise, and I was also kind of using it as a time to drop some body fat a little bit here. And I think I was 226 or 228, something like that. High 220s here, and then 252 here. So a productive 3 years for sure. That's something. It's easy to feel like things are going slow, or you're not exactly thrilled with your rate of progress, or you compare yourself to other people that are further along. It's key every now and again to go back a year, 3 years, 5 years, and see how far you've come, because it to me this ends up looking like quite a big difference. And then when you think, okay, 3 years, that doesn't feel like that long ago. I can remember exactly like where I was, what my headspace was like here. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago for me. So to see the physical difference, like in the muscularity, I think is pretty cool. So that's everything, guys. Thanks for everybody for following along. Keep your eyes peeled this week. I have the back training tutorial or walkthrough video coming out, podcast coming out, and then there may be one other video. So keep your eyes peeled. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And until next time, guys, I'm out of here.